The Celtics snap a 4-game win streak, drop a pretty disappointing game to the Portland Trail Blazers on Sunday night, 114, 108. All that despite the fact that Jaylen Brown goes off for 37 points and continues his ridiculous stretch of scoring. We'll talk about all of that in just a moment.
Jaylen Brown with the flush. Tatum the drive. Tatum the finish. It is banner 18. The mission commanded is mission accomplished.
I thought the Celtics were going to make it 5 straight games because the Portland Trailblazers entered this game super banged up, super shorthanded, and one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. And for the most part, the Celtics have been good at taking care of business against inferior opponents this season. Everybody's going to remember the Brooklyn Nets loss, the Utah Jazz loss, and the Milwaukee Bucks loss. Those were 3 games that they should have won that they did not. And this one now joins that group of games. And so after each of those games, there could have been a lot of overreactions. And I think earlier in the season, there were more overreactions because we didn't know what kind of team this was. And so you lose a game to the Utah Jazz. At that point, they were a below 500 team. So it was different than how I feel right now when they lose a game against an inferior opponent, when they've been really consistent and they've won entering this game. They won 9 of their last 11 games, I think 16 of their last 22. So we've seen a lot of good things from the Celtics team. But just because you've been playing well doesn't mean that you're guaranteed wins. And this game was a perfect example of that, where they come to Portland and it's a homecoming game for a couple of players. Anthony Simons has spent his entire NBA career here. Peyton Pritchard from Portland, Oregon. And I think that puts a lot of intensity for both of those guys to perform well. They want to come out with a win and they want to show out in front of their friends and family, right? So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but just extra kind of emotions potentially related to this game. But also a lot of travel because Friday night they're in Indianapolis, and then Sunday afternoon, this is a 3 o'clock tip in Portland. They're in Oregon, so it's a lot of travel across in the country, and then a day and a half, right? Not a back to back, but not necessarily as much recovery time as you would have liked. But these are all maybe some circumstances. They're not excuses because this team did come out a little bit flat, and they got beat on the glass, and they turned the ball over 20 times, which is almost double their season average. And so they didn't put themselves in great position to win. They're getting out rebounded, and the Blazers caught fire from the outside. They had some unlikely performances from players like Caleb Love, who came off the bench, 18 points for him. And meanwhile, the Celtics backcourt of Derek White and Peyton Pritchard struggled, right? They combined for just 21 points. So far this season, the Celtics are 0-7 when those two guys combine for less than 25 points. And so, that's going to be tough to win when you're not getting enough offensive production from your second and third leading scorers, two guys that each average around 18 points per game on the season, right? So there's a lot of reasons why they lose this game. I did a full 1 hour length show with Bobby Manning, the Garden Report on CLNS Media. So go check that out where we kind of discussed everything that went wrong. But this podcast, we usually pull the positives, and sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even know where to start. I have like 9 things I want to talk about. Sometimes it's a little bit harder. These kinds of more lackluster losses are always going to be a little bit harder. So I will still do it, but just disclaiming that it's a little bit harder to find positive things to talk about when you lose to an opponent that you should have beaten. But I will just say this game really did come down to the last couple minutes, just some bad execution. Jaylen Brown and Derek White seemed to have like a little bit of a mishap on a screen, and then Jaylen kind of wanted Derek to leave the play faster than he did. And then the next play, they have a backcourt violation. And then the play after that, Derek White looks to pass to Jaylen, who was cutting, and Jaylen was going to, look like he was fading out of the corner, but Derek saw an open lane for him, so he passed him near the basket. And it was just a couple of just bad plays down the stretch, and they lose this game on turnovers, really. That's not how you want to lose, but also if you're going to lose that way, it's better to do so in December than to do so in the playoffs, right? So some potential moments of growth there for those two guys who obviously have played together for a couple years now, but maybe haven't been in the position of being the 1-2 on a lot of those late game plays as much as maybe Derek and Tatum have, or Jaylen and Tatum have. So some opportunity for growth there as well. But what I wanted to talk about to start this show, and maybe the bulk of the show, is what we're seeing right now out of Jaylen Brown, because he made Celtics history tonight. He tied Larry Bird for the most consecutive 30-plus point games ever for any Celtics player ever. And you think about how many Hall of Fame players, how many all NBA talents, how many all-time greats. Nobody outside of Jaylen Brown and Larry Bird have done this, have scored 30-plus points in 9 consecutive games. And Jaylen has the opportunity to go for 10 on Tuesday night against the Utah Jazz, which, by judging by how things have been going in recent weeks for him, I'm gonna imagine that he extends that streak. He scores 27 points in the first half, including a buzzer-beating 3-point shot, and he was talking to Tamari Kamara quite a bit entering halftime. And he did cool down in the second half, only scores 10 points in that half. But honestly, that was, he still finishes this game super efficient. And Jaylen is just in general has been so efficient this season. He's having an incredible month of December. I think he's probably going to be Eastern Conference Player of the Month, although Jalen Brunson has certainly a case to be made as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Celtics month of December in general in just a moment here. But I just want to take a moment and and I've talked about Jalen a lot on this podcast. And this wasn't the best game for him because he does have the 5 turnovers. He had an offensive foul that they ruled a flagrant foul, and Denny Advia misses the 2 free throws, but it was still a tough play because it would have been an and one on one end, and instead it's Blazers ball and 2 free throws. He had a couple of turnovers that I mentioned with Derek. I don't even know who got assigned those turnovers, but both those guys were responsible for some of those late game mishaps. So he leaves this game probably frustrated. And from what I saw, there's a couple of reporters on the ground there in Portland. I'm obviously not there. It sounds like he was pretty frustrated with the late game execution in particular. Joe Mazzulla gave him his flowers for his scoring consistency, but Jalen has made clear he's not just going to be content because he scores a bunch of points, right? He blamed himself for the Detroit Pistons loss, and he had a great stat line that game. And in general, I think that turning the ball over is a thing that he knows has been a weakness in his game. And so he's always going to be down on himself, hard on himself when he does accrue some costly turnovers, especially if they're late game turnovers. So I just want to zoom out though, like 37 points, 9 consecutive games of 30 plus points. Before that, he had a triple double. And before that, he had 4 consecutive games of 30 plus point games. So this is just like, you don't really see nights where Jalen is not bringing it. And that's what I wanted to talk about today is that I do think right now he is in the first team All NBA conversation. He's shouldering a load offensively that maybe he knew he was capable of, but I don't know how many people truly knew that this is what he was going to be able to do as the number 1 scoring option without Jason Tatum by his side. And I don't want to be a broken record because I talk about this almost every game. But tonight was the night that he tied this record, and it's so hard to make Celtics history. And I think everybody knows why. It's because there's so many great players that have played for this franchise. And sometimes guys make set records that are kind of goofy, like Derek White was laughing about one a couple weeks ago, where he set a specific stat line of like minimum number of rebounds, assists, steals, points, and it's just like, okay, that when you add that many things, it's maybe not as fun. But the reality is the 30 plus points is a pretty good trade, hallmark. And he's averaging just around 30 points per game on the season. Entering this game, he was averaging 29.4, 37 in this one. He may end up averaging 30 plus points on the year, which only a handful of Celtics players have done. Jason Tatum's done it once. Larry Bird's done it. So he might end up having like an all-time Celtic season. That's what he's currently on pace to do through 31 games here. We're almost halfway here. We're 10 games to the halfway mark of the season. He's only missed 2 games. And I think he's going to be out there as much as he possibly can, obviously bearing any injury setbacks or anything like that. But we're witnessing something really special. And this was a guy that was in trade rumors this summer. And I say rumors because, his name was floated a lot by the media, floated a lot by Shams, who kind of kept reiterating that there was a lot of interest in Jaylen Brown. But despite all of that, he's here to start the year. He's excited to be here. He makes clear from training camp that he's embracing the challenge and he's embracing, teaching the young guys and bringing everybody up to speed. And here we are now, late December. It's about to be the new year, and the Celtics have exceeded expectations. Are 19-12. We have the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, and over the last 5-6 weeks, they've been one of the best teams in the league, and in the East, and in particular, the offense has been awesome. And Jalen has just been at the center of all of that, and they were neutral when he was on the court today. They were +0 or -0, however you want to call it. So Celtics played the Blazers even when Jalen was out there, and were a little bit outscored -6 when he was off the floor. So certainly they've been a better team with him on the floor. Certainly he has shouldered an offensive load that few people projected he was going to be able to shoulder. And I'm going to read off his December stats because December has just been an incredible month for Jaylen Brown. And I mentioned earlier, I think he's very likely going to be Eastern Conference Player of the Month. He's averaging 32.7 points, 6.6 rebounds, 4.9 assists. And you look at his efficiency for this month is incredible. 54.4% from the field, 43.2% from three, and 80.2% from the free throw line. That is a true shooting percentage of 64.3 for those that look at things through those numbers. I mean, across the board, it's just been efficiency. And the Celtics are winning. They have the third best record in the month of December at the time of my recording this, which we're in the middle of some games right now. It's late Sunday night here. But yeah, he's just given you everything you could have wanted and more. And from a leadership standpoint, he talked about Celtics University. I asked him about the coaching staff. I asked him about what he's seen out of them. And he really said, it's all about teaching. It's all about the film room. It's all about teaching the young guys, the new guys. And he's embraced being a part of that rather than being annoyed that he has to play the prime of his career. He's 29 years old, has to play alongside all these young guys. Like, he has kind of looked at it from the other direction, and super cool to watch. So it's been a lot of fun to watch. It's been really impressive. And obviously for Celtics fans, they have seen so many all-time players play for this franchise, don Celtics green. And I think you're watching another one of those players. And I think maybe you already knew that entering the year. Obviously, he has a Finals MVP and Eastern Conference Finals MVP for All-Star appearances, but this year has solidified what he's able to do as far as individual statistics that maybe you didn't know he was capable of. I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. The holiday season, the best time of the year for sports, bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes, it is all happening at once. And while you and I are here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, there's one place where it feels good to be right. PrizePicks. PrizePicks is available in California. It's available in Massachusetts. I downloaded the app. I've been playing ever since, and it's particularly fun to pick basketball players. Obviously, there have been a ton of players that are having career years between the Celtics, Jaylen Brown. Somebody who's really stood out to me is Austin Reeves, Josh Giddey in Chicago, also having a monster season. PrizePicks now has early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. On PrizePicks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose FlexPay where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the power play. No matter your play, PrizePicks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, that's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So I mentioned Jaylen and just the consistency with which he's played. And the tier of star that he's now in. I mean, this is very elite company, right? Few players are able to put these kinds of numbers night in and night out. And honestly, I didn't think he forced the issue, right? He only has 4 assists in this one, but he made a lot of great plays down the stretch, trying to play make for others, at times successfully, times unsuccessfully. But Joe gave him his flowers. Joe Mazzulla was asked post-game about Jaylen Brown in tying this record, and he said the most impressive part of it is just how balanced he's played and how he's doing it on all fronts, right? It's not just been bucket getting, right? It's all the little things, that's setting up his teammates, it's defending, all of that. So that's the kind of year that he's having. And it constantly begs the question of, like, okay, what if Jason Tatum comes back? And this is the version of Jaylen Brown you have alongside him. Like, could this team be right back into the championship conversation? I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say because you don't know what kind of version of Tatum would be coming back. You don't even know if Tatum's coming back, right? We've talked about it a lot. It's hard not to talk about it when he's face of your franchise and obviously just changes everything for this team. But if he does come back this year and Jaylen's able to continue playing at this level, this team is certainly in the mix for any conversation, including a championship. And that's where my head's at, especially seeing the fact that they've been able to continue to win in spite of his absence. So that's my thoughts on Jaylen. I mean, he just continues to amaze, and I don't want us to take it for granted. Same as a lot of other great things that have been accomplished by this franchise. I said this a lot during the 2023-2024 season when they were putting up historic offensive numbers, when they were blowing out opponents on a nightly basis. Don't take for granted this greatness, right? As a fan, you can say, I wish they were the top seed in the East. I wish they were coming off a championship last year. Like, it's not always perfect, but sometimes you just see greatness. And I think right now with Jaylen Brown, you are watching greatness, and you have been lucky to watch a lot of greatness over the last couple of years, starting with Isaiah Thomas to some incredible Jason Tatum seasons where he's flirted with MVP appearances and been a staple of the first team All-NBA. And here we are, this could be a down year. It's, as far as watching these individual performances in games, and it really hasn't been. And so you're still seeing greatness. And what's been cool is seeing the entire NBA community watch Jaylen Brown on a nightly basis and be like, wow, this guy is actually exactly who he said he was. That's what I said last show, and I feel pretty strongly about that. Like, he knew this was coming. Maybe we didn't know. Maybe some people knew, but he certainly knew this was coming. Alongside Jaylen Brown, there's another star. I think the second best player for the Celtics tonight was Hugo Gonzalez, who finishes with 13 points on 5 of 10 shooting. 13 points was actually the second most points that any Celtics score, tied with Anthony Simons. So not a great sign for the Celtics offense tonight, but it is a good sign for Hugo, who is on the court to be a defender, but anything he can do on the offensive end is a plus. And he only hits 1 of 5 3-point attempts, and he got some clean looks that I'm sure he wishes he had knocked down. But he had a beautiful drive, a couple of great finishes, and just so many awesome defensive plays that he ends up playing 30 minutes in this one, despite the fact that Jordan Walsh was available. He started, he only plays 9 minutes. And so I've really enjoyed seeing that Joe is willing to just play the guy who is playing best that night. It shows a certain level of trust in Joe, but also a level of like freedom that Joe has as a coach, that he doesn't feel like he has to predetermine lineups. He doesn't feel like, you know what, Jordan Walsh has been the starter. He has to play 25 minutes just because. The right move tonight was to play Hugo those extended minutes. And it wasn't enough to pull off the win, but had they won this game, we'd be going back and revisiting a lot of great big time plays that Hugo had down the stretch. So I'm continue to be really impressed and fascinated by the fact that this guy is just 19 years old. He's in his first NBA season, and already he's able to impact the game in so many different ways. And I can't help but think, if you're going to do an NBA, draft 2025 redraft, right now it's really early, but I don't think he comes out at number 28. I think that this is a guy who is probably a top 15 pick, which is awesome because Celtics were not in 15 pick range last year, coming off the regular season they had as one of the best teams in the league. So being able to draft well is a gift for your franchise, because the jury has been out on Brad Stevens, because we had, first couple of years, he doesn't even have a first round pick. His first round pick is Baylor Shireman. Jury's out on Baylor. I mean, I thought he had some great moments tonight, but he's not somebody that has blown anybody away as far as his on-court production yet. Jordan Walsh was for a early second round pick. Jordan doesn't play his first 2 years, certainly has had some great moments this season. But Hugo is the first guy that pretty much right away you can tell this is a slam dunk. And this game kind of further affirmed that. And a lot of the last week and a half has been talking about how great Hugo's been. And certainly tonight was another Hugo game, another Hugo performance. He had one game over the last week where he didn't play much. That was Friday night against the Pacers. He only played 13 minutes. Because if he doesn't have it, Joe has no obligation to play him. But tonight, he was the guy that Joe primarily went with. Josh Minot, 2 consecutive DNPs. We'll see how that plays out and whether that remains a more consistent theme. But this is a guy that was starting games about a month ago. So we'll see if Joe kind of gives him another opportunity. I'm sure he'll get another chance on this road trip to play his best. But no Josh Minot for the second consecutive game, which meant that they went with Hugo with a 5 for extended stretches here, which did come to bite them down the stretch when Donovan Clingan had the game sealing, or at least was the dagger putback layup and one. Hugo was trying to box him out, but was having some trouble, and Keita and Luka Garza were both on the sidelines at that point. So there are drawbacks to going small. For the most part, I thought that it was worth having Hugo out there. He made enough plays to warrant them going small. And the fact that he's even at all succeeding as the small ball 5 for the Celtics is really impressive, because, again, he is still figuring things out. He's still learning. He's still growing. And however good he is right now, imagine him when he's 22, 23. Like, he's still going to have the same athleticism and speed and all of that, but his mental is going to be so much more ahead of where it is now. So it's been a lot of fun to watch Hugo. He's been one of my favorite players to cover this season. And alongside like the Jaylen Brown explosion of the season, like that's been a really fun narrative. Hugo Gonzalez has been a really fun narrative as well. The last thing that I wanted to talk about, which is not really about this game, but zooming out December right now, the Celtics have the 3rd best record in the league in December. They're 8-3. Only the Spurs, who are 10-2, and the Knicks, who are 9-3, have better records. And they also have the 2nd best net rating. The Oklahoma City Thunder are plus 11.3. The Celtics are plus 11 in the month of December. So a lot to like about how they're playing, which is why I didn't feel like tonight's loss warranted a whole episode about like, oh my God, the sky's falling. They lost the Blazers, because big picture, they've been playing really well. And I do hope that they're able to get things back on track with games against the Utah Jazz coming up here on Tuesday, Sacramento on Thursday, and then the Clippers this weekend. So they have 3 winnable games coming right up. They're 1-1 on this road trip so far. not exactly where they want to be. I'm sure they wanted to win both of these games. Teams seem pretty frustrated after this loss. They did kind of shoot themselves in the foot a little bit against the shorthanded Blazers team. But big picture, a lot to still like about how things have been going in recent weeks. And again, I start to worry about these losses when they start to compound, right? If they lose a couple games here consecutively against teams that they should beat, now you're thinking, what are the themes that are emerging? But taking a bounce back against the Utah Jazz, the Jazz have now beaten the Oklahoma City Thunder, or sorry, the Spurs, the Pistons in recent days. So they're not a team to scoff at, right? They have enough talent over there to pull off some improbable victories. So we'll see if they're able to do it again against the Celtics on Tuesday night. But that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this kind of brief reaction podcast. You got Boston. Certainly have been enjoying having all of you listen and always enjoy recording my reactions to these games. Check out the full length episode with me and Bobby Manning on CLNS Media, the Garden Report. Also, Joe Mazzulla's comments should be uploaded on CLNS Media as well. And let me know what you thought about this game. I'm sure this was a frustrating one for many listeners. So what frustrated you most? Were there positive takeaways that I missed? Let me know in the comment section. And as always, thank you for watching.